playing with not just on Sunday, but for the probably majority, or at least the first few games of the season until we are reactive and change and do something else. This is a 4-3-3. It's quite an attacking formation. It's one that I played with and had success with in the past. You essentially have quite dynamic, wide, expansive play, and you have opportunities for players to move, interchange, and progress the game. I will just try and keep this under 15-20 minutes because I did do one of these videos before. It was like 40 minutes, but definitely come have a chat with me if you want to learn more about football, more about formations, why we play in certain ways. I'm very happy to have like tons and tons of discussion and chat. I'm a little bit football mad. It's probably not very healthy. All right. So first, let's start on the defense. When I say defense, I just mean that back segment, those four in the back line. I do not at all think that there are defenders and attackers. We both played both roles. Every person in that front line will have a defensive role at some point, whether that's pressing or triggering a press or chasing down a ball. And each one of these defenders will have an opportunity to get forward and play attacking passes and be part of the attack as well. As you can see here, two centre backs, that partnership is quite important. We'll talk to that in a second. Left back and right back. The difference between those roles, the fullbacks, as they're sometimes called, is that they're more aggressive. You'll be able to press the ball more. You won't worry as much around covering because these players will always be watching and they'll be the last line of defence. Whereas these players will approach the ball, attack, and you'll essentially have mostly just a winger on the opposition to look out for, where these players will interchange over who they're marking and who they're trying to make sure doesn't get through on goal. One thing that is different about our team and our style of play is that often, especially when we're pressing into the final third of the opposition or in that middle third, is our right back. Sometimes our left back as well, but we're going to start on the right. It's going to come into midfield and essentially alleviate the pressure on that defensive mid so they can go forward a bit. And they will essentially leave the three at the back so we can make a numerical advantage and an overload into the opposition half. And we'll talk to what that looks like in a second. But yeah, just remembering they're going to tuck in and be what we can call an inverted fullback. One of the other important parts of a back four is the partnership between two centre backs. It's probably the most important partnership other than midfield in any sort of formation, especially this one, because there will be always one, and it'll be through communication and getting to know how to play together, that one will become what we call a stopper and one will become a sweeper. It's not to say that you always have to occupy those roles, but generally one player will become a little bit more naturally inclined to go and attack the ball, and another will be more inclined to maybe stop, to sweep and be a bit more hesitant and cover. That's not to say that one always has to go, one has to stay, because realistically, I want you all to be developing your football IQ and understanding the game and knowing how to read play and knowing the next option when necessary. It's also because essentially if the ball comes down through this channel, so your left back is occupied out wide, and this person has said, yeah, I'm sweeping a bit more, or that I'm more of a sweeper. I don't want you to go, okay, cool, well, I have to be a sweeper, I'm going to drop back, and this person who's our stopper has to come across. What that does is that hesitation gives the opposition player with the ball more time to make a decision, also opens up this channel here. So in those scenarios, the ball's coming towards you, you can't see in your peripheral vision anyone else it's best to attack them, you press the ball, you attack. That other player then goes, great, that's the point of attack. I'm going to come back and make sure that if that person gets past, I'm the next layer, I'm the next person that covers. And that is centre backs. As you can see here, sometimes we'll get caught out a little bit because that right back might have come into midfield and the ball's progressed and the opposition's in this space. Or for example, on the other side, if the left back's pushed up the wing, maybe made an overlapping run or an underlapping run, and we're into this formation of those three at the back. What we want to do is essentially come across and think about, the way I always think about it is imagine there's a piece of rope, an imaginary piece of rope that connects the four centre backs, or the four back line essentially, the two centre backs and the full backs. And that essentially dictates that when one goes, the other two are going to essentially come across and make sure that we're still covering that danger area or that middle segment as a unit. And in this scenario, that right back's gone up and that right side centre back has come across to sort of cover this space, and then that middle centre back has taken a bit of a deeper role, and so they can dictate and tell the other two when to press and when not to press. What we're doing in this scenario as well, when we are overloaded, if we do get a counter attack or a quick break from the opposition, is instead of going in to make a harsh challenge, we really want to delay the opposition so that when they have to slow down, they have to essentially try and beat us or try and look for a pass. Our centre mids, our right back, our defensive mid can all come and help out. They can all drop back and make sure that we're not letting that player clear through on our keeper. I want to talk to essentially this as the danger zone, if you will. Remember this little spot in front of the goal is essentially where all good attacking play kind of happens. That's where you essentially build up and make those decisions that will get you through on goal. So imagine these X's are the opposition. We always want to make sure that we're essentially blocking this area or making sure that none of these players are going to have the ball like this. We should always have a centre back come across, say the ball comes here, this centre back's always going to come across, and this right back's always going to go, cool, I have to then tuck in. Players that are out wide will have to be sacrificed. That might be a right wing or a centre mid comes to get that player if they are doing a really good job of having that width. But essentially, when there's a player that's lurking around here, let's say it's this player, we want to make sure that we're inside of that player. We're not here giving them equal opportunity to go right or left of us. We're making sure that we're inside, so that is the easiest option for that opposition player. That's because going this way is a lot less dangerous than if they have the opportunity to cut inside and go in here. Why that is because essentially if we've been beat here, they've gone past us and come inside, it means that this player now has to make that decision to jump over here. And they have to hope that that defensive mid or that centre back can essentially come across and mark this player. Because otherwise they're just going to pass until they get a clear shot. Whereas if we're here and we tuck inside, not just goal side, but also trying to force them that way, then they go down here, we can follow them. All they can really do is get a cross in. That's fine because we've got bodies in the box anyway. Cool. Just remember that when we're compact and we've got our shape nailed in, we're defending this area, and that can obviously extend down to the box. All right, I want to talk about midfield and especially the defensive mid. This is a really important position for us. We had a lot of success here from some of our returning players. Alberta, Bella, Sylvia had a really good run here as well. So I want to have a bit of rotation, but I also want to make sure that we're playing positions consecutively and consistently. But just if you ever do get put into this defensive mid position, it's all about sort of like communication. Like I said before, that screen for the defense, making sure that there isn't an opportunity for players to play between those lines. Remember that 4-3-3, that 3 and that 4. We want to occupy that space by this defensive mid in between, really making sure that there's any disruption for that danger zone of the opposition's attacks. For our midfielders, essentially these are box-to-box midfielders, or what will sometimes be called number 8. Let me know if you want to know about the numbers. Essentially, they used to represent what position you played on the pitch. So I will say it every now and then, but the shorthand isn't necessary to learn. It's just something that I'll mutter under my breath, maybe. Yeah, you'll be essentially trying to cover as much distance as possible, getting involved in all aspects of play. These midfielders, when we have the opportunity, will essentially be as far up as the second striker, as well as coming back and helping as much through that back line as possible. There's a big focus from these positions just by the way of what they do on that short passing, progressing the ball, recycling play, but also making sure that they're pressing and defending as much as possible. These will cover the most amount of distance on the pitch. I know that Hannah did a Goliath effort of, I think it was 12, 14 Ks last season in one of the games, and that's what we really expect from our midfielders. Being an option, always being available. Yeah, we'll have a big enough pool that you'll always have a sub, don't worry. But it's also the best way to get your steps in. Cool. Now I'll talk a bit to the forwards. So width is really important for us. in this formation, you really want to make sure you're spreading that back line. We don't have two strikers to kind of bully the two centre backs 1-for-1, but instead we want to make sure that we're pulling those wing backs and creating those channels through the back line. So what that looks like essentially is if you've got a back four, you'll generally have one centre back will take the job of marking that that striker. If they don't occupy both, which a lot of the time they will, we'll need to make sure that these two wing backs are essentially looking at us and making sure that we're their priority, because these are the players that are going to be essentially attacking the ball, making those runs in behind to progress play. But when we do have the opportunity to go, okay, cool, we're stretching play enough with our width, you'll then see those channels where a centre mid can come and make that run through, or even the right back sometimes can make an underlapping run or an overlapping run to make sure we're outnumbering. The centre mid and the defensive mid will also be coming up to make sure we're progressing play or making a nuisance of ourselves. And a lot of the time as well, you'll see a switch of play, which we'll work on quite a lot, which will essentially bounce through these players out to the right, left wing. And that's because generally, and you'll see this in us as well, when the ball is, say, for example, over your left wing, you'll see the defenders come across, and it could look something like this, where we're kind of making this play, we're stretching and pushing over into this area. So this person's come over because we've got these options like this. And what will happen and be very effective sometimes is a 1-2 bounce and then a nice through ball here, and that right wing's down with maybe a shot or a nice crossing opportunity. Cool. I want to really talk as well to the fact that left wing and right wing, we'll have a lot of opportunity to run in behind, a lot of opportunity to attack the players. So essentially what that means is like dribbling past them one-on-ones and shooting opportunities. But when we are making those runs, as soon as we hit the final third, so the third slice of a pitch, if we're going up from goal to goal, we'll always be focusing or prioritizing an outside to in run. That's for two reasons. One, you get closer to goal. You can make more of this is like we said, the danger area for your opposition as well. So we want to be making sure we're in and around the box as these forwards, so we can actually have attacking opportunities. But also, when a ball comes through, picking it up as you run is a really good way to essentially break play and get us up in the upper hand and into more attacking positions. If we run to the byline or run to the corner, they've got a really good opportunity of just putting one player here, and we're kind of boxed in. So always trying to make that outside to in run. And this is also really important once the ball does progress and we do get into opportunities where we're, say, for example, the left wing or the striker, all get into the areas where this left wing is coming here, or the ball's coming down, maybe a bit further down here. That other side is always going to tuck in as well. Yeah. Being out here isn't going to help us. We want to be making that run with them as well. So as we get close to the box, we're loading it and we've got options. That's cutback options, maybe a nice like hard ball across goal, and that other winger comes going to come in and tap that in. Awesome. I think that's it. Okay, I'll talk a little bit to the striker as well. So your strikers, we will be very much focused on in the second or the defensive and the middle part of play. We'll be looking to have our back to goal quite a lot and playing with the midfielders, making sure we're kind of having some passes off. A lot of time when the ball is played to our feet in that the defensive or the middle third or the build-up third, we'll be looking to get those passes out so we can then progress. Once the ball gets to that final third of play, that striker is then probably our main priority to get the ball to them to have that shot. We're really lucky that we have two great strikers this season in Laney and Jones. And so we're looking to make sure that they're sticking in that position as much as possible, making those runs for us, pushing the back line, playing a lot on the shoulder is what we call it, is where we're quite close to that centre back and making sure that we keep stretching them, keep making sure that there's going to be as much space in between their back line. And we have whatever. Yeah. So essentially making sure that they've got enough space in between the back line and their midfield for us to actually play in between. So what that means is, say for example, this is our this is their back line. We want to make sure that there is space in between their midfield and their back line, and we do that by that striker pushing the back. So they're essentially always trying to progress the ball, and that's whether or not that's making a run in behind to get the ball over the top or through the back line, or it's just essentially picking up positions that drag them with them. Generally, your centre back will try and stick on the shoulder or stick with you to make sure that you can't just receive the ball freely. And the further we push them, the further we make a big gap in the here that our midfielder can come and occupy. That ball then comes to them. Boom, they've got space to move. They've got space to play that pass. If that striker stays a bit too close, then those defenders can come and make sure that they're quite close and compact. Remember, compact is good from a defensive point of view, and it means that our centre mid has no space to play, no space to receive that ball and attack. So the striker is always going to be our furthest forward, always pushing. When they do come back to pick up the ball, it'll be to come back, 1 or 2 touch passing, maybe out wide again, and then they're running in behind to get another nice ball back across. We'll work on all of this. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I'm happy to go into a bit more detail for any of the positions as well, but we'll also be tinkering as we go. Super excited for this season. Let me know if you have any questions. Happy to chat.